Hello, friends. We are going to take a short but sweet journey into some twists. And that is kind of building on the work we've been doing for the past couple of weeks with all of the pelvic stabilization, learning to engage the glutes, finding our solar plexus. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start on our backs, and you're going to want to have a strap if you have one. So go ahead and lie down on your back. Once you get to your back, let's have our blueprint pose as it has been lately, being that one where we have our feet about hip distance. Let's walk our feet out a little wider than our hips and let our knees just gently lean in. The objective is not to have the knees touch. Mine are not actually touching. I'm just simply softening the weight of the legs in so my hips can soften. Yeah. Arms out, about 45 or so, palms up. And another way I like to think about it, because I'm not much of a math girl, is a little bit of air getting in my armpits. And hopefully we have the body in a position where all of the muscles can soften. So go ahead and take a moment and scan your body, find out if you have any additional muscular tension. And if you do, can you let it go? And if the answer is no, can you still just kind of accept that and live with it without judging it? And then take just a few moments, bringing your awareness into the back body where it makes contact with the floor and where it doesn't for that matter, right? But we've been playing with that. Where are you on your base of your skull? Is your neck close to the ground, far away, right? The upper back, the kidneys, the low back, the sacrum. And then one last piece before we move too much here is bring your awareness to your breath. Trying to find that space where we can slow the breath down a little bit while keeping it smooth and not efforting. And so try to keep as much of the softness as you can. As we move, we're going to start to engage muscles. It's true, but right, what if this is our baseline and we engage only the muscles we need to? So walk your feet into hip distance. Without using your arms, bring your right knee into your chest. Notice how the low back comes closer to the ground, and exhale the right leg down. So just starting with that. Inhale the left knee in. And again, you are letting that low back round into the ground, exhaling it down. Inhale, right knee in. And exhale, right foot down. Inhale, left knee in. And exhale down. So now hug the right knee in, but don't let the low back round. So you're probably not going to bring the knee as close to the body, right? And exhale down, or the torso, I should say. Inhale, left leg up. And exhale down. So one more like that. So again, I'm still bearing the weight of the leg. Your right leg is coming up, of course, right? But I'm not letting my low back round. I'm starting to use some of those stabilizing muscles around my pelvis and low back, right? So that it doesn't move easy, even as I lift the weight. Third part, I'm coming into tabletop, knee above the hip, heel directly out from the knee, and then bringing that back down. And again, try not to let your hips rock from side to side. You're probably on about your left leg. Right? So I took my voice out of telling you when to bring the leg up, but you have one more on each side, one right leg coming up on an inhale, down on the exhale, and then you'll finish with the left leg. And again, just notice what wants to move. Maybe one side is more stable than the other. That's definitely true of me, by the way. And then just pause, walk your feet out a little bit, let the knees gently lean in, and just take a moment. Right? Okay. Bring the feet back into hip distance. Bring the right leg in. This time you're going to take your strap and put the strap around the right foot. Go ahead and push that right heel up to the sky. And let's just take a second and open up the hamstring of this right leg. So just leave your left leg where it is for right now, if you don't mind. And there are different reasons why we would straighten it or bend it. The reason I'm asking you to keep it bent is because we have a little more freedom in the pelvis because there are no muscles really taut pulling on it, right? So while you've got that spaciousness, reach the right thigh forward towards the foot side of the mat and lengthen your right side waist, right? Find that the pelvis is neutral, as best you can anyway. And push that right heel up. Now keep that stable and reach your left leg all the way out, bring the foot down to the ground. Take a breath from there, inhale. And exhale, keep pushing that right thigh forward, even though your hands aren't on it or behind it, right? And then with your next exhale, I want you to go ahead and push the solar plexus 2 inches above your navel down so much you lift your body up and towards the leg. Don't worry about pulling the leg closer to you, right? But maybe lift the left heel about an inch, toes pointing up to the ceiling. Push the left heel further forward, push the right thigh further forward, and bring the left heel down, bring the upper body down. And while we're here, let's go ahead. Actually, no, bring the right foot down to the ground. This is how I'm going to teach it today. I'm changing my mind last second. Bring the left leg in, strap the foot, push the heel up. And again, I'd love you to leave the right knee bent for a few moments. I know we get pretty, we like to get into things very quickly, right? So right now, just let the main concentration be the left heel pushing up. So you're starting to feel the back of the left opening for things we're doing in the future, right? There's a reason we do that. And then we're pushing our right thigh forward to the foot side of the mat. So we get that length in the left low back so that our left hip isn't sitting higher, right, than our right hip. And then maybe we keep that stable and we reach that right heel out, heel on the earth initially, but very active. Take a breath here. And then with your next exhale, 2 inches above your navel, your solar plexus, push it down to lift up. You could put a hand behind your head if your neck is sensitive, right? Maybe lift the right foot up just an inch or two. Don't go too high. And don't go high, get longer. Right heel forward, left thigh forward, toes pointing up. Take another breath. And bring the right foot down, bring the head down, release the strap, bring the left foot down, put both feet wider than the hips, knees soften in, arms shavasana, pause, the blueprint pose. Notice your body. Okay, so now we're going to do a little add-on. Walk your feet into hip distance, bring the right leg in, strap the right foot, push the heel up. Right, so a little quicker, but same stuff. Right thigh forward, find pelvis stability, lengthen left leg out, flex the foot, do leave the weight on the ground this time around. Put both straps into your left hand and grab as close to your foot as you can without your shoulder getting pulled out of the socket. Tee your right arm out and then let your right hip, lift as you roll onto your left hip. And I have a wall shorting me out, so you might go the height of the hip, but don't go all the way to the ground, even if that's available to you, right? And then from there, I'm going to imagine I still can push that right thigh forward to the foot side of the mat. And I'm going to really reach and lengthen that right side body and that low back and keep that pelvis neutral, right? And breathing, I might turn my head to the right and breathe. We'll hit this shape again a little later on a foot, so on 2 feet, right? So go ahead and bring that back up. Just map it in your mind, what it feels like here. Go ahead and release that right foot down and pause with both feet on the ground for a moment. And then we'll go to the other side. So bring that left leg in, strap the foot. My right foot is on the ground initially, right? That way, as I push the heel up and push the thigh forward, I get all the spaciousness, the stability. I recruit the muscles. Then I straighten my right leg all the way out. Not the only way to work it, just the way we're working it today, right? Now put both straps in the right hand, tee the left arm out. And keep that left thigh moving to the foot side of the mat as you lift the left hip, right? And start to come over. Some of my friends, you have the ability to bring the left heel lower than the left hip, but please don't for today's purposes, right? Keep it at that same height. And you might not get that far, and that's okay, right? Now pushing both heels into an imaginary wall, pushing the left thigh forward towards the foot side of the mat, or I could say towards the right foot, maybe turning the head and looking to the left, maybe not, and breathing. Bring the hips back down to the ground, right? Let that left foot come out. One more time with the blueprint posture, right? So go ahead and let the feet walk a little wider than the hips, knees lean in, arms in shavasana, pausing, noticing if your back body and the relationship it has with the floor has shifted or changed. Walk your feet in. If you need to come up a different way, you totally should. Otherwise, bring the knees into the chest and rock yourself up. And go ahead and come into hands and knees. And actually, I'm going to get myself I forgot to grab my blanket and have my blanket over here, right? So I'm going to put a blanket underneath my knees. We are going to do a little bit of a lunge thing. So if that makes you want to have a blanket underneath your knees, take that, yeah? And then go into a couple of cat-cows just to move that spine a little bit in flexion and extension. And then when you feel complete there, you're going to wag your tail and look over your right shoulder towards your tail and then to the left. And here we are getting our lateral motion in the spine. And coming back to center, go ahead and step your right foot forward to the top of your mat. We're going to leave that left knee down if it's available. If you need to lift it, you sure can. Bring the left hand on a block or the ground under the left shoulder. The right hand, the thumb is going to go in the hip crease. Now, do you remember last week's work where we pulled it's 2 weeks worth of work, actually. We move that hip in and back so it doesn't stick out to the side, right? But don't let the right knee go wide because of that. And then from there, maybe you're going to extend and let your right arm reach up. Now, if you feel like your belly or your breasts or anything are in the way, you can always use that right hand and help move that, or walk the right foot out a little wider if that makes it more accessible to your body, right? And breathing. And go ahead and release down, switch the legs out. Nothing too fancy on that. We're just going to go right into it. Bring the left foot forward. Get nice and long. Bring the right hand under the right shoulder. Left thumb's going to come in the hip crease. Pull that hip in and back without pulling the left knee wide. And then start to twist the torso. And then maybe the arm reaches up. Hand might stay on the hip the whole time. And again, if you wanted to actually physically move your belly, move your breasts, or walk the left foot out a little bit, and that makes it more accessible, that would be a beautiful thing. And I don't talk about it often because, to my knowledge, no one who is taking yoga with me is pregnant right now. But if you were pregnant, you would only do open twist. You would never close your twist and compress the baby. Bring the left hand down, step that left foot back, and let's take a downward dog before we do our next twist from hands and knees here. So just go ahead and move yourself back. Consider bending the knees for a little bit and trying to push the hands forward and down, seeing if you can't get even a little more length through the spinal column. Once you're as long as you can through the spine, maybe those heels reach down, those legs straighten a little bit. And then imagine, just like we did at the beginning on our backs, those thighs really moving towards the back side of the mat, towards the heel side of the mat, but a little more up, obviously, up and back. And bring those knees down. Step your right foot forward. From there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to inhale up into a low lunge, right? So you can put your hand there if you want to, but I want you to imagine that right thumb in the hip crease, holding that hip, pulling it in and back without the right knee going wide. That's usually a lack of push or pressure in the inner edge of the foot, right? So keep them both happening, right? And then from there, you're going to keep the right thumb where it is, by the way. Reach the left arm up, elongate out of the left side waist. And then when you turn, you're going to turn your belly button towards that thigh. And you could even use your hand and you could pull the belly back and try to hook the elbow. If you're like, not for me today, just leave your hand under your shoulder, do the twist we just did. Maybe palms come together, right? Now, first push your palms together and try to see if you can get your chest and your thumbs to say hello. And then once you got that, maybe you push your elbow and your knee together to see if there's a little more rotation. But watch with how forceful you might be, right? And if your right hip starts to move out to the right where we just asked it to come in and back, then you've gone a little too far potentially, right? And breathe. Bring the hands down, step the right foot back, step the left foot forward. Inhale up into a low crescent, right? Pull the frontal hip points up, all the usual suspects. And then from there, you're going to bring that left thumb down, hold that hip in and back, lengthen out, move flesh if you need to, or hook the elbow or bring hand under shoulder, bring the palms together. Now, again, you're going to push the palms together, and I do that to try to see if I can let my chest move a little more towards my thumbs towards chest, and then push the elbow and the knee together, and that might bring you a little deeper into the revolve of the spinal column, right? And take a breath, release that down, take a downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana, and breathe here. Really find those thighs pushing back, lengthening the spine. And for a lot of us, we could use a little bit of the solar plexus gently pulling towards the spine. Again, that's 2 inches above your navel. And go ahead and bring the hands back, walk the hands back towards the feet. Hang for just a moment there in your forward fold. And then from there, put your hands on your shins, reach the chest forward. I'm a little off today, if you can't tell. Exhale, fold in. And hands on hips, elbows up. Elongate that spine just as soon as you can. Come up with all of that length in the body. Bring the hands down. If you're working with a blanket, move the blanket off to the side and come on up to the top of the mat. Actually, I'm just going to turn my body. No, I'm not. You may want blocks for this next piece. If you have them, I'm going to suggest that you get them. You can always push them to the side once we're in if you decide you want to go further down. Yeah. But they help us find a long spine for the forward fold. Hands on the hips, bend the knees and step your left foot back. And have this be, you want your heel to make it down. So I would say not quite as wide necessarily as like a warrior one, but you can kind of play with that. See if you can get your left hip to move further forward, your right hip to move further back. Pushing down to the ball mound of the right big toe so you really feel that engagement, pulling the kneecap up. And then start to fold forward until your hands can get to those blocks. You could always have just a chair in front of you or something too, right? And then push into the blocks or whatever you're working with and try to lengthen the spine a little bit more. And see if you can take the right buttocks bone specifically and reach it back behind you. Now, if this goes into the knee, you might be hyperextending. So you might ask the calf to gently engage from the back side of the leg or micro bend the knee. Right now, some of us that feels like plenty and we're in our hamstrings, right? Some of us, we're going to start to fold forward over that setup. You might move the blocks or put them on a lower setting, whatever works best for your body, right? I'm just breathing from this place, still asking the left hip to move forward, the right hip to move back. And then put your hands on the blocks again. Inhale, come to that halfway up point. And we're just going to switch the legs out. No, we're not. Go ahead and put your hands on your hips, elbows up, chest forward and up, because otherwise we won't mimic the other side and get a little bit of that strength on the way in. Step your left foot forward. Bend your knees. Float your right foot back. Heel down. Right? Now my heel to point back for the most part, about 90 degree. Right hip forward, left hip back. Push down the ball mound of that left big toe so you get that outer left hip hugging in, right? But also pull your kneecap up. And then start to fold out over the leg, bringing the hands down, lengthening the body. And again, that includes the left buttocks bones moving back behind you as the chest moves forward. Some of us don't flare your solar plexus, right? And then maybe you fold a little more over those legs. Maybe you stay higher and, you can move the blocks to lower settings, move them out of the way, whatever works for you here. Notice if you're really pushing, like you think you're going to get a prize or your body's the best body, if it gets lower to the ground, etc. Try to let go of that stuff. Come halfway up, hands on the hips, elbows up, and then come all the way up, trying to use that core strength. Step your right foot forward. All of this is to move us towards twisted triangle. Before you go there, I just simply want to point out, we have already been in the shape of twisted triangle when we have that strap work, right? So I'm not saying that makes it easy. I'm saying hopefully it's got a familiarity to it, right? So that when we start to move into it, and you don't have to do this quite yet, it'll look something like, oh, let me go this way first. The work we just did of pyramid, right? We'll come down. I'm going to ask you to stay here for just a second, and then we'll transfer the hand over, inner or outer edge of the foot, outer being more intense. That right hand, that thumb is going to push that hip crease in and back before we do anything so we can lengthen the spine. And then we're going to try to turn the torso and move in. Makes sense in theory? Hands on the hips, bend the knees, step your left foot back. So think pyramid pose first. Right hip back, left hip forward, right? Hug that outer right hip in, and the hand will help it in a second. Start to fold out over that leg. Don't lock out that right knee. Pull the kneecap up. And then lengthen the spine. So don't go into the twist yet. Right here is gold, right? Right buttocks bone reaches back as the chest reaches forward. Now go ahead and transfer your left hand over, and you can have the block inside the foot less intense, outside on the pinky edge more intense. Right hand or thumb goes into that hip crease. Pull that hip in and back, but keep pushing down the inner edge of the right foot. Lengthen the spine, And then maybe you turn your torso a little more by pushing that left hand down, trying to move the left shoulder over the left wrist. Maybe that right arm extends up, maybe not. Maybe you turn the head and look up. Remember, the more the shoulder blades move down, the upper traps stay less engaged, I'll say. Go ahead and maybe turn and look up. Not speaking well here. Turn and look down, right hand to the hip, left hand to the hip, tone the belly and come up. Step the left foot forward. Whew. Take a breath before we do the other side. Y'all know that normally these kinds of poses, I don't like to do until we're at least like a half hour to 40 minutes into a class and we've opened up all the pieces. So it's a quicker way in than usual. So if you're like, holy moly, yep, you betcha, right? Bend the knees, step the right foot back. If you're feeling tenderness or pain, you might do an hour-long pose with this or do another twist class that's not as intense. Right hip back forward, left hip back. Start to fold into pyramid, right? Once you get to your pyramid, really push that right heel down, reach the left buttocks back and chest forward. So keep this, because this is gold right here for moving into this twist. Now the right hand comes over to a block inside, big toe side, or the pinky toe being more intense. Please put your left hand on your hip, thumb crease, hip and the thumb in the hip crease or the hand. Push that hip back, but keep pushing the inner edge of that left ball mound of the big toe down. Maybe you turn the ribs a little more. Maybe you reach that left arm up. Maybe you turn the head. And I think the best way to, the best helper of this twist, I'll say, is the right hand pushing down into that block as if you're going to move your right shoulder over your wrist. Not in a forceful way. You don't have to do more than you're already doing. I'm just pointing that out if that's a helpful tool. Turn and look down. Bring the left hand to the hip. Bring the right hand to the right hip. Inhale, come up. Step forward. Whew. And here's the cool down. You can move those blocks off to the side. Move your arms forward and up. Exhale, come all the way down to your buttocks. And if you need to come through something other than chair pose, right, a squat to get there, you do that. And you're going to come all the way down onto your back. And then once you're on your back, let's go ahead and bring our right ankle on our left knee. Flex that foot just a little bit for protection. You can stay here, left foot on a block or bringing it in, interlacing. Push the thigh forward, right? This has been the last couple of weeks' work as well. Trying to get the glutes a little bit more. Now, if you find you get them way more by rounding your low back down into the ground, awesome, do that. But just try, just for giggles, right? Push your left thigh forward until your low back comes off the floor into its natural curve. Keep that and then hug the whole leg situation a little closer, but trying to maintain your natural lumbar curve. And my hope is that right outer hip, for me, it's even in the upper thigh a little bit today. That area says hello. And then from there, go ahead and move the legs over just a little bit or a lot to the left. By a lot, I mean like it can be a couple of inches. You kind of feel it out where it is that you're like, Come back to center, bring the left foot down, bring the right foot down, left ankle, right knee, flex the left foot and let that left thigh gently move forward, right? Either the legs stay here or they come in. If you interlace, you can actually work with the hands and the leg. If you don't have the interlace, just imagine hands there, push the thigh forward into the hands. So you find that little bit of lumbar curve. Keeping that, maybe hug the legs a little closer. And again, if you're like, no, I find way more benefit rounding my low back and bringing my knees really close to my chest, then you should totally do that. Know that what we're trying to get right now is the glutes, right? And a little bit probably outer thigh, depending on your body. Move the legs a little over to the right. Again, a little or, a lot, whatever that is, till you're like, ooh, that kind of moves the stretch and I feel a new place, getting benefit. And go ahead and come back to center. Right foot down on the ground, left foot down on the ground. Pause for just a moment, noticing your body. And let's go ahead and just do one more soft twist, and then we're going to end the sequence. So go ahead and tee your arms out. Let your feet walk about as wide as the mat, or at least wider than the hips. Let your knees move over to the right. Stay over there. I want you to push the inner edge of your left foot down. That's what is the top leg right now, until you feel your left buttocks hug in, right? And as it does, it's going to lengthen you through the front of that left hip, that psoas area. Now keep that. Maybe the left arm reaches overhead. Right hand can grab the left wrist and help lengthen you out of that left side waist. You don't have to do the arm part if it doesn't feel right. And bring the arms to teed out, bring the legs up, legs over to the left. Again, I'm working with the right leg, which is the top leg. I'm pushing the right foot over towards the right edge of the mat. Solely it's traction, it's sticky, it doesn't move right. Solely to hug my right buttocks in and lengthen through the front of my right hip. And then maybe the arms go over and the left hand grabs the right wrist and you just help lengthen out of that right side body. Arms go back to teed out, the legs come up, and then go ahead and let your knees just gently move in. Bring your arms down to Shavasana style, palms up. And we were in this the very beginning of class, right? It was one of the first things we did. So just notice if anything has shifted or changed in your body without judgment. Oh, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. It's just notice. If you find anything that's, tender, numb, etc., maybe just really listen to that part of the body and set an intention to try to be really careful with that as you move throughout your day. And if it feels like there was benefit in the practice, take a moment and enjoy the benefits without judgment. And then go ahead and walk your feet in a little bit. This time to come up, let's roll to the fetal position. It's just a softer dismount, I call it. Push the floor away and come on up. And, for those of you at home, which is anyone doing this video potentially or traveling or whatever, but meaning you could stay in Shavasana and end. Bring your hands together in front of the heart. Inhale. Namaste, friends.